Grizzlies fans, welcome back into another Grizz Game Day update. It is the first game of a back-to-back with the same team. We have not had this in quite a while. So we have the Trailblazers tonight. We have the Trailblazers tomorrow. So joining me to break down this game for the first time, Sean Highkin. Are you excited about tonight's game between two teams that both, I think, desperately need wins?
I think the Blazers, just from a vibe standpoint, would really like to get one because they literally, I think this is the first time this has happened in franchise history. They did not win a game in the month of February. Now, I know it's a shorter month because of the All-Star break. So there was a week where there weren't any games. So you kind of put an asterisk next to them having a winless month, but they still had a winless month. So
They're
I
still
think
on
they would
a
like
nine-game
to.
win streak.
I think they would. Yes, the last game they won was actually on January 31st, which was against Milwaukee, which was Damian Lillard's
That was our last win too.
yeah, January 31st.
No, against the Bucks.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was the game that where when the Bucks had like 5 G leaguers or like 10-day guys in the starting lineup. Was that?
No, they had their whole lineup against us. It was right before All-Star, and
I
they're
meant the Grizzlies had like a bunch of.
oh yeah, and we still do. And
Yeah.
we'll get into injuries. Yes. So tonight for the Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Derrick Rose are not playing.
Mhm.
Luke and Concha are both doubtful, and then Gigi is questionable right now. And I know Grizzlies fans, when they hear this, are like, "Oh man, we don't have anyone." But the Blazers also don't have anyone. They are without Shaden Sharp, Malcolm Brogdon. DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. And then
Yeah.
Scoot Henderson and Moses Brown are both out. So the Blazers are being led by Jeremy Grant, who's averaging just under 22 points a game, Anthony Simons, who's averaging just under 22 points a game. And the Grizzlies, we're going to leave out GG for a bit just because he's questionable, but they will have Vince Williams Jr., who's averaging honestly, it's 10 points, but the 10 points doesn't do it justice, Sean, because he's been flirting with triple-double territory for the last dozen or so games. And
Mhm.
Lamar Stevens. This is the lowest scoring team in the league versus the second lowest scoring team in the league. Tell me how the Blazers score. Like, where do they find their points?
It's really the two guys that you mentioned, Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons are really the two that you can kind of depend on night to night. DeAndre Ayton too when he plays, but as you mentioned, he's doubtful tonight with a hand injury he suffered in the last game against Miami. I think the fact that he's doubtful, that he's not being listed as out. I doubt he plays tonight, which is why he's listed as that. But the fact that it's not a long-term injury, I think, is good news. But DeAndre Ayton has been playing his best basketball of the season for the last month or so since he came back from a knee injury. But really, Malcolm Brogdon is another guy who's been out for a while, and he's going to be out for these two games against the Grizzlies. But really, it's Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons that are the two guys that you can kind of count on night to night.
The other thing that I'm looking at is field goal percentage. This is also the bottom two leagues in field goal percentage. The bottom two teams, excuse me, bottom two teams in points in the paint are the Trailblazers getting up lots of threes. Like the Grizzlies shoot a ton of threes. The percentages are not high, but they try and get up a ton of threes. How are the Trailblazers looking to score?
Well, I think the reason that they're so on points in the paint, it is a lot of mid range. It is a lot of threes. You look at their two centers, and I guess that Memphis is kind of the same way because Jaren. I mean, I realize Jaren Jackson's not playing tonight, but he's more of a perimeter big than he is a post up guy. But
Yeah.
like DeAndre Ayton who's their starting center, normally takes a lot of mid range shots, and the guy who I'm assuming if Da doesn't go tonight, Duop Reith will probably start at center, and he's really more of a pick and pop big. Takes a lot of 3-pointers. So from the positions that you would expect there to be a lot of scoring in the paint, that there hasn't been a lot of that because those two guys one of them is more of a mid-range guy and one of them is more of a pick and pop kind of perimeter guy when it comes to that. And then uh before he got injured, Scoot Henderson, I think a lot of what he was doing was a lot of attacking the rim and a lot of getting downhill, and he frankly hasn't been very efficient at that. And so I think that's some of the reason why you're just not seeing a whole lot of scoring in the paint. I will say, for whatever you want to say about these being the two lowest scoring teams in the league, I can't imagine it's going to be much uglier than the game the Blazers played last week against Charlotte, where they scored 80 points and shot 3 for 32 from three on the night. So,
Oh,
yeah. it's just one of those stretches of the season in a rebuild. You know how that goes.
Of course, of course. Okay, so you had mentioned, or I had mentioned all of these injuries. You had mentioned who, if DeAndre doesn't go tonight, who will be in that center position. Can you walk me through? I know we don't know. I know it's not set in stone, but like what a starting lineup would look like if the Grizzlies fans are watching this and they're like, who's playing tonight? Walk me through who you got.
Well, yeah, well, there's been a lot of upheaval there. So we got because Scoot Henderson, right before the All-Star break, Chauncey Billups said that he was going to be the starter going forward for the rest of the season.
And now
And
he's
then he tweaked his adductor muscle during the Rising Stars game in Indiana
got
and
it.
hasn't played since the All-Star break. I think there's probably a chance he's back in the next week or so. So I don't think that's a long-term thing. But Shaden Sharp is out, Malcolm Brogdon is out. So I think the starting five, if it goes the way that it's gone the last week or so since they've had all these guys hurt, and now let's assume DeAndre Ayton doesn't go
Yeah.
because he's listed as doubtful. So let's assume he doesn't go tonight. It's going to be Anthony Simons, probably Chris Murray, the rookie out of Iowa, who has, his role has kind of fluctuated up and down over the course of the year, but he's been playing a lot more lately. He's probably going to start at the two. And then Tumani Kamara, another rookie who has, been an impact defender all season. His offensive role has kind of come and gone. He's gotten better at that recently, but that's a guy who's been pretty consistently in the starting lineup. So he'll start. And then Jeremy Grant will start at the four. And then if DA doesn't go, it'll be Duop Reith, who is he's a 20. If you haven't watched if you don't know his story, if Grizzlies fans aren't familiar with his story, I recommend going to this video that Matisse Thybulle posted on his YouTube channel because they've known each other for a long time and they played together on the Australian national team. But Duop Reith's whole story is crazy. He and his family fled from the South Sudan when he was really young and to Australia, and he started playing basketball in high school. He's a 27-year-old rookie. And he played at LSU for college, and he played overseas all over the place. This is his first year in the NBA, but he's been one of the, you know how it is when it's a team that's not winning a lot of games, you look for good stories like that. And Duop was somebody who right before the All-Star game, he had his two-way contract converted to not just a real NBA contract, but a multi-year deal. So he's signed for the next 3 years now, but he's going to start at center if DA doesn't go. And he's he's a very different kind of big than DA is. He's more of a pick and pop, guy. He shoots a lot of threes. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but he's like a 38% 3-point shooter, which for a big is pretty good, but he gets him up too. He's a gunner. That's, I think, the thing people don't realize about him when they play him for the first time. He'll get him up.
So that's going to be probably Trey Jemison on him, I would assume. So that's going to be a task defensively for Trey.
Could be.
My last question for you is about our guy, Vince Williams Jr., who could lead the way today for the Grizzlies. Like I said, been flirting with triple doubles for about a dozen games or so. Tonight, I have hopes, personally, this isn't like an organizational thing. I have hopes that he gets his first career triple double. In order to do that, Sean, this is what I'm going to ask you. How can he take advantage of the weaknesses of the Blazers defense? What can he do?
Well, I mean, it's not that hard to do, especially when DeAndre Ayton is out. He's been pretty, like the last month or so, he's been pretty impactful protecting rims. So that's something that I think is going to open up there. But you don't really have to look that hard to find reasons to, think that somebody is going to be able to exploit this defense the way it's been going lately.
What is the defensive weakness? Like, do they allow a lot of paint points? Do they allow drives? Do they have wing defenders?
They actually have okay perimeter defense with, guys like Tumani Kamara, who will pick, he'll pick guys up. Ashton Hagen's one of their two-way guards, which again, this is for both of these teams. This is kind of what we're talking about now is a lot of two-way guys, but he played at Kentucky in college. He'll pick guys up full court. Jabari Walker is a solid defender. Jeremy Grant's a solid perimeter defender. But really, without DeAndre Ayton, it's a lot of weakness as far as interior defense and rim protection.
All right, get to the paint. That's the key going into this game for the Grizzlies. Sean, thank you so much for hopping on with me today. I hope it's a good game. One of our win streaks will come to an end tonight, and then we'll have a rematch tomorrow. I appreciate your time so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.